Hi. Good. How you doing? Yep. Dina, I'm going to start sweating. Can you turn the air up? Are we not allowed to control it here anymore? Okay. It's okay. I guess so.
I'm surprised that your brain's not exploded out of your head. You didn't see me. I get so calm to oh, I must have a few hours
camera's on.
I don't know how did you turn this on?
It's on.
Okay. All right. Good evening, and welcome to all our Remote Learning Academy families who are joining us tonight. First of all, apologize for a little bit of a delay. We were having some technical difficulties, so thank you for hopping on to the new line with us in connection. I know that we're getting a little bit of a late start here, so we can hang on for a few minutes afterwards to make up for the time. And in addition, what we have found in the past when we've had Q&As like this, we often can't get to all the questions, so we will make those questions and answers available after the session. But to get us started, I am Dina Wilson. I am the Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. Many of you have been in contact with me or have heard me speak before or definitely have received communications from me. And as you know, this is something brand new to our school district, having our students learn in a full remote environment. But we are very excited about this and feel very prepared to do so. I have with me this evening Mr. Brad Malone. Brad is our Director of Information Communication Technology, and he will be the Program Director overseeing the Remote Learning Academy. In addition, we are in the process of interviewing for an assistant principal to be assigned full-time to the Remote Learning Academy. So in the next week or so, we'll be introducing our assistant principal to you as well once the interview process has been completed. But in the meantime, Brad and I are here tonight in order to give you a little bit more background and, more importantly, answer the questions that you have. I will say in advance, even though we are well prepared and we have accomplished a lot of work the last couple weeks since we found out from New York State in the middle of July that we were going to make this option available to our parents and our students, we've had to do a lot of work really fast. And as much as we are prepared, there are still some items that we are still working on. So I'm going to say in advance that the model that we've been doing with the teachers over the past week is we're going to go and we're going to grow, and we're going to closely monitor and make adjustments along the way. But to start us out a little bit, some of you may not have joined some of our other information systems, so I just want to give a little bit of a background about the Remote Learning Academy. First of all, I'm sure you've already seen the document that we have posted on our district website. We have a document that gives you an overview and a framework to what the Remote Learning Academy is all about. If you have not reviewed this document, I highly recommend that you do so because I think it will answer a lot of your questions that you may have around the structure, the framework, and the delivery of instruction. The other thing I want to let you know is that in our Remote Learning Academy model, and we're calling it the Remote Learning Academy because we're considering it basically a school within a school. And we have been very purposeful in designing this model. You may be talking to a lot of friends and family in other districts, and some other districts may be going about it a little bit differently. But our approach is students that are learning fully on a remote model will be engaging with other students and peers who are learning in the same learning environment. And we'll be working with teachers who are specifically designing synchronous and asynchronous instruction for online learning. We made a deliberate attempt not to have teachers and students who are teaching and learning in a hybrid model try to work in conjunction with students working in a fully remote model. There is a lot of philosophical and educational reasons behind that, as well as a lot of scheduling and systematic reasons as well. So in Rush-Henrietta, we did choose to do this school within a school model to ensure that we're delivering the best online instruction possible for our students and giving our teachers the professional development and supports they need to deliver a remote model opposed to a hybrid model. So we definitely are looking forward to this, but as we go along, we know that there's a lot of questions that we're still getting to, and the teachers will be working with families to get to a lot of the specifics to the particular grade levels as well as courses as we move along. Before we start getting into some of the questions that are starting to come in, I would like to ask Mr. Malone to give a little background about himself as the director overseeing the program, as well as answering some of the questions around Chromebooks, because Chromebooks will be our main tool that we will be using to deliver instruction. So that is one item I want to make sure that if you haven't seen the e-news that went out about Chromebooks, then Mr. Malone can spend a few minutes talking about that.
Thank you. Thanks, Dina, and thank you all for joining us. As Dina said, my name is Brad Malone. I've been the Director of Technology for the last 4 years. But before that, I was a librarian here in the district for more years than that, about 13 years. And so in many ways, this situation has given us an opportunity that feels in some ways the culmination of the work we've been doing for at least 10 years, bringing technology into the district, integrating it into our instruction, into our assessments, into our curriculum in meaningful and powerful ways. And so I believe we're incredibly well positioned as a district to support this work, to make sure that our students have the tools they need to learn, that our teachers have the skills and the professional development they need to do this instruction. And it's just going to take a little while to kind of smooth out the edges as we learn through it. But you guys are in good hands with these teachers. They've worked incredibly hard this week, doing professional development, thinking, talking about how do you change your instruction from in-person to hybrid, or to remote, excuse me. So I am extremely excited for them to get in front of your students. So yes, there is some questions about Chromebooks. We did send an e-news blast yesterday. If it's not linked on the website, we can certainly add it there. If you need a Chromebook, there's a form to fill out. If your child is in grades kindergarten first, second or third, or fourth, we have those all technology services, and we'll put the address on the website. And you can come pick them up between 8 and 3 any day this week, and I'm also holding some hours from 9 to 12 on Saturday if the weekdays are not good to get to. I know sometimes our hours are more banker hours than from other professions. So come on over. If you are your child is in grades 5 through 12, then there is a form to fill out. We'll prepare a Chromebook, and then you can just come pick it up. That would be if you're new to the district, if you have a Chromebook at home but it's not working, if you never picked up your Chromebook in spring when we went through remote learning, all those reasons and more. If you don't have a working Chromebook at home, go on, fill out this form. We'll make sure it's on the website first thing tomorrow morning if it's not already there, and so that you can apply and then just give us 24 hours to get them ready, get them signed out to your student. Then you just come right to our door and pick it up. You don't need to make an appointment. Just ring the bell, and we'll have someone there waiting to hand you your Chromebook and charger.
All right, I'll take one of the first questions. When will we get the list of books and other items needed for the RLA? Again, please stay patient. You will be getting information about materials and resources needed, as well as a process and when to pick up materials that will be provided by the school district from your classroom teachers or course teachers. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes right now when it comes to resources and supplies for schools. One, many of our vendors are back ordered for some of the textbooks and books that we order and workbooks, and at the elementary level our students are used to using manipulatives for their early math and literacy skills, and we plan on putting kits together for them to have at home. However, even though we placed these orders late last spring, so many things are on back order or cannot be shipped out because our vendors have shared with us that due to COVID, they're working limited hours, 50% reduced staff, and so forth and so on. So be patient. Over the first 2 weeks in September, you will be informed by your teachers when and how to get your materials. We also are taking materials out of the home schools and trying to organize and put them together this week now that teachers are back. So it's just taking a lot of coordination behind the scenes to get the resources gathered that are in district, and we're still waiting for a lot of the new materials to arrive on site. But in the meantime, that short supply list that we did send home, having the Chromebook and the communication that will be coming from your specific teachers will help keep you moving along and making sure you have the necessary materials and resources. I don't think there's anything we need to add to that one.
I guess the only thing I should have mentioned with the Chromebooks as well is that unfortunately the kindergarten first, you're going to come pick up a Chromebook, and then hopefully about a month from now, we'll be reaching out to you to come switch that Chromebook out, because we will have brand new ones out there that are going to be able to do some things that are going to be very exciting for the kindergarten and first graders, a flip model, a stylus, but just like Dina said with other supplies, we ordered those in April and they are still not in yet. So our vendors assure us September 21st, both my fingers are crossed, so.
We'll all cross them.
Okay, yes, please.
The next question is, and I love how this one starts, given the short timeline. So thank you for acknowledging that we have worked under a very short timeline, and I'm very pleased and proud of what we have done in a short time and knowing that there is still a lot more work to do. But with that being said, given the short timeline, what training and development have been provided in an effort to support teachers to have the strongest start possible? Well, starting on Monday, our teachers have returned to work officially. I need to say many teachers started working a few weeks ago unofficially as they began to look at their curriculum, also learn how to do some best practices around online instruction and so forth. But officially, this past Monday, Brad and I, as well as instructional coaches are teachers who are designated in our district to work with teachers to help develop their practice. And in our district, we have 3 instructional technology coaches that have worked in their roles for the last 5 years, who are working directly with all the teachers assigned to the Remote Learning Academy to make sure that they have the best skills, resources, technology tools to deliver the best program possible. So throughout this past week, Brad and I, along with the instructional technology coaches and also our program directors as well, have worked with the teachers to talk about how best to deliver curriculum, how best to use resources, and design their instruction. Do you want to add a little bit more to that as well?
Yeah, I think one thing we should point out is that we also did, to stretch ourselves and stretch our teachers, we did all of this remotely as well. This gave our teachers the opportunity to practice, to feel like what it feels like to be a student in these classes, to see what it's like to sit that long. We had to talk about, you have to give different levels of breaks and different types of breaks with this kind of work. So by experiencing that, it really stretched all of us to really understand what our teachers and our students are going to be going through in the next few weeks.
So I can say with confidence as the Assistant Superintendent for Instruction that our teachers are not only participating in the professional development that we're providing on their planning time and a lot of outside even the school day, they are working together and they are really seeking a lot of additional training to do this in the best manner possible. That leads us into the next question about the percentage of time you anticipate to be synchronous versus asynchronous. This one I'm not going to give a hard number for because at each grade level it will vary, even between kindergarten to 6th grade. And the thing that Mr. Malone just mentioned is we know that students cannot be in front of a screen all day long, nor should they be. And that's why we were very purposeful when we put our plan together and shared that with families to explain what synchronous and asynchronous learning looks like. And there will be a balance of both. And in the beginning, we'll be doing some large group synchronous instruction with our kids, and we'll be doing that throughout the whole year, but probably a little bit more larger group than as the year goes on, as we try to build a culture of an online classroom community, and then start having our students learn how to work in small groups and different times. There will be definitely a time that the students will be working asynchronously. So I don't want to give a time frame just yet, but it's a very good balance. And we're looking at it to make sure it's developmentally appropriate for the different ages. And it's going to vary from day to day as well.
And then at the secondary level, we will be running a period schedule similar to what they're familiar with in in-person school. But those will be 50-minute classes with 10-minute breaks in between them. But also one of the things we've really had to stretch the teachers thinking about is that they don't need to meet with the whole class for that whole 50 minutes. You might start with all of them and then break it off and say, I need you guys to come back in 20 minutes, or I just need to work with this small group. So those are the things we really spend a lot of time thinking about. How do you rearrange when you have this luxury of being able to use any combination you want with students? And so that has really broaden our thinking of how we can deliver this, to give students that break, to allow them to keep learning asynchronously while you focus and really work independently with 1 or 2 students at a time. So that was a shift as well.
So the next 2 questions is about when will we know our teachers and how many kids are in a class? And again, I'm going to thank you for your patience. Normally, we share student schedules as well as teacher assignments mid-August. This year, you're finding out this week, and our goal is to have everything live tomorrow morning. That's for the secondary, if we have any secondary people hopping in for the elementary, as well as going in and seeing your elementary class teachers. Just as of last Friday, we reallocated some of the teachers from the hybrid model over to the Remote Learning Academy. We have over 1,300 students enrolled in our K-12 Remote Learning Academy, with about 700 being at the elementary level. So we quickly realized, because we did take families off the wait list and enroll them over the last 2 weeks, the enrollment grew significantly than what it was just as up to 2 weeks ago. So we did add more teachers, therefore we had to go back in and redo all the classes one more time. And we're shooting for balance. We're also shooting to make sure that to the best extent possible, we're keeping students together, if not the entire class, but portions of a class with their home schools that they're coming from. We're trying to balance out our classes with the students that need support and special services so they can work in collaboration with a special ed teacher, a reading teacher, or an E&L teacher. And the class sizes are going to vary a little bit. We're looking about 20 to 25 as you move up into the grade levels. And we're asking you to be patient with that as we will continue to make some little tweaks. But our goal is to make sure that we're keeping them basically in the mid-20s. Would you say we're landing at, Mr. Malone, right now?
Yes, yep. Some of the secondaries are a little bit bigger for some of the electives, but yes, that's definitely our goal.
Yeah, but at the elementary, we've been able to
Oh, yes,
keep.
elementary.
Yeah, but at the elementary, we've been able to keep them around that size. So we will keep a keen eye on that. At this point, we are not taking people off the wait list unless, it's an extreme, circumstance that the superintendent's approving. So we're hoping that this boost of enrollment that we had over the last 2 weeks is over, and we can finalize all the teachers and the support services and the staffing. I will say we will monitor it closely. If we find that we are understaffed and giving support services and so forth, we will continue to look at the staffing in the hybrid model as well as the staffing in the Remote Learning Academy, and we might need to make some adjustments along the way. The teachers are aware of this. I want to thank our teachers. They've been flexible. Teachers, just as you're as anxious to know who your teacher are, they're anxious to know who their students are. And many teachers the last week thought they were doing one grade level or one model, and they received last-minute notification that they were switching to another grade level or a different model. So a shout out to our Rush-Henrietta teachers for their flexibility and their patience and really rising to the occasion over the last week. So be patient with us, but as of tomorrow morning, we should be good to go. Will social emotional support be available for remote learners? Yes. First of all, your teachers are going to be spending time each day, more in the beginning of the year and then just constantly throughout the year, making sure that when we have a lot of what we call our group meeting time or working with students, that we're addressing the social and emotional needs of students in an overall perspective. In addition to that, we did not assign counselors or social workers to the Remote Learning Academy, and we did that purposefully. We feel as though that if students need more social emotional support beyond what the classroom or course teacher can give, it would be best if they would work with counselors and social workers from their home school. Students are familiar with the social workers and counselors from their home schools, and if you're going to be giving that type of support, we thought it'd be much easier and more comforting to work with staff that they're already familiar with. So in the event that you feel as though that your child needs more social emotional support than what the classroom teacher can provide in the lessons and in the small group and individual interactions he or she is having with your child, work with the classroom teacher, and the classroom teacher will reach out to the assigned counselor or social worker and put you and your child in connection with that person to start working together. Okay?
I think a question that kind of goes along with that, Dina, is a question about how will teachers help foster relationships among students in their classes. Obviously, something we're incredibly worried about. We want to make sure that students still feel that connection to school, to their friends, to the other classmates, get to know them, get to know their teacher well. So we've talked about that quite a bit this week, along with our SEL trainings. We've brought staff from all over the district, so we've spent a lot of time this week practicing, modeling, what are activities you could do to get the class talking, to get them to know each other. We did a lot of that to get our teachers comfortable with each other as well. So they've had some practice, they've given some thought to it. They've done actually a little bit of debriefing where they kind of wrote down some of their initial ideas. So they've started to think about how do they build community. And then another thing is we'll build communities as a building as well. We'll do some virtual spirit weeks. We'll do some other PBIS events for sure, just to help encourage students to feel connected to the Remote Learning Academy and the district as a whole.
Absolutely. Brad, I'll let you look at the next two Chromebook
Yeah.
questions, and I'm going to talk to the one about will teachers give instructions before school starts on how to log into the classroom on Tuesday morning? And the answer is yes. Once they know their class list and they get all the email addresses, and they'll be sending information out to families. We will be asking our elementary families to help our elementary students log in for the first time. And obviously, our younger students will need some support from home or caregivers who are working. But our teachers are prepared to give you instructions and be patient and responsive. And we do know that the first 2 weeks of school, we'll be spending a lot of time just working on the operational items of understanding our schedules and how to use the tools, working on the social emotional learning, doing a lot of even fun things online to get to know one another, and then be easing into the ELA, math, social studies, and science as we build up. So the one thing I was talking to the teachers about today when we're working together is we're going to go slow and steady out of the gate. So at home, feel free to provide your children with some additional reading. We encourage that independent reading. Start refreshing some of those math facts at the elementary level. And we're going to spend a lot of time the first 2 weeks just really building what we call a culture for learning. And we believe we can do that in an online environment. So we'll be giving you all those directions so that you can help out at home and help with the students as they're getting acclimated to all that.
As for getting on, and that certainly can be difficult for our earliest students, we just this morning mailed out usernames and passwords to all our K-6 families in the Remote Learning Academy. So you all are receiving, hopefully tomorrow, maybe Friday, all the usernames and passwords for your children. So that'll be able to get you be able to log right in. Someone has really studied my system and realized that when you switch buildings, typically you get a new Chromebook. So when you go from 6th grade to 7th grade or 3rd grade to 4th grade, you typically get a new Chromebook and you keep it for the duration of that time in that building. And you switch it out when you leave. That would absolutely have happened this year. We would be inviting you in if our Chromebooks had arrived on time. And so when they come in, we will be putting it out to our 7th graders and our 10th graders and our kindergartners and our 1st graders. So those are the ones getting new devices. Our 4th graders are already in. They came in a few weeks ago. We had some incredible staff get them all ready. And then you can come pick those up and just drop off your old Chromebooks then. So right now, keep the Chromebooks you have. Again, if it's not working or if you don't have one, please go on the website and fill out that form. We'll get one ready for you. But there will be a point in time in the next month, month and a half, 2 months if they want to really make me sweat, where we will be getting new ones out for you.
Okay. Next question is, will RLA students also have paper-based assignments, or will they all be online? Well, obviously our first goal to do as much as possible online, obviously especially at the secondary level, because this is a virtual learning environment that we're working in. However, we do know, especially at the elementary level, there are times where our students need to have more of the manipulative experiences, as well as still work on their penmanship and do writing. So we've been in conversations with our elementary teachers this week of identifying what paper and pencil materials, and for the lack of a better word, the old workbooks. We like to call them practice books, and we try to make things very interactive and engaging. But yes, there will be at the elementary level some things going home that will allow the students to have more of that interaction with paper-based work, as well as some manipulatives and so forth, or even like whiteboards we use quite a bit at the elementary level. And even with online instruction, students can show their whiteboard to give a response, and teachers can interact. So stay tuned again with that. Do know that we are still required to give assessments with remote learning, and we have looked at all the assessments and screeners we give in the district. And the Remote Learning Academy students will be taking the same assessments as the hybrid students, and we've are working on, if they're not already available online, making them available online. So stay tuned with that, because at the particular grade levels, the teachers will give you more information. But trust me, we're not going to be giving any assessments right out of the cages here this first couple weeks. So just stay in tune for that. The next question is around specials at the elementary level, and this is another area that we're working on, and we're also identifying how to bring additional art, music, and PE staff to the Remote Learning Academy, since our numbers have increased the last 2 weeks. Right now, for the first quarter, we're going to be working with our art, music, and PE teachers to provide at least one asynchronous activity per week. And then we're also going to ask them to look at their schedules and work in conjunction with grade level teachers to identify a good time that they could provide some synchronous that would be available for the students who are interested in doing it. If students do complete an asynchronous activity, teachers will provide feedback and respond accordingly. But for the first quarter, since we're trying to have our students get comfortable with the systems and the online environment, we did not want to add too many teachers or expectations for our elementary students until we have a little flow going. And one thing, when we did read all the parent surveys from last spring, when we did go remotely, we heard loud and clear from our elementary parents, it became very overwhelming when they had multiple elementary teachers posting and sharing. So what we want to do is ease into the special areas, but we are mindful, though, how important art, music, and PE are for our elementary students, even in a virtual learning environment. So there will be things posted that students can engage in, and you can support them as the parents, and then we'll build more opportunities in once we get up and going. So for the first quarter, one activity a week, and then we'll be looking at opportunities to grow and expand beyond that. Okay. So the next question's around platforms. In Rush-Henrietta, we are a Google Education School District, and we use the Google Suite and all the Google apps. We do that because with Google, such as like a Google Meet, we can ensure a high level of security for our students. So our teachers will be using Google Meets for their synchronous instruction. If you're new to the district and I don't know our login information, how can we get that?
So for K-6, as I mentioned, those will be mailed home. You should get those in just a few days. If you don't get them, you can certainly reach out to me. Again, my name is Brad Malone, bmalone@rhnet.org, and I can certainly help you. That is for sure. Can I expand just a little bit more for the live teaching as well?
Sure.
I think the two most important tools that if you can have your students look at and look right away is Google Classroom and Google Meet. Google Classroom is our LMS, our learning management system, and that's really where the teachers will push out a lot of assignments, they'll post a lot of notes, they'll post announcements. So you're definitely going to want, if you're new to Rush-Henrietta or you're new kindergarten family, as soon as you get those Chromebooks and the logins, you should have your student bookmark those, practice going to those. So that's where it'll all begin. That's where the teachers will give you the links to the meets, and that's where you'll get more information from the teachers, besides your email as well, of course.
Okay. And as you notice, Mr. Malone and I are tag teaming here today. He works in a lot more of the details than I do, so I try to make sure I'm giving you our overall district perspective and how we're handling things, and then allowing Mr. Malone to give you more details, since he is more up to speed with this as being the director of the RLA. The one question we do have is, will the teachers have a full day of classes with teachers? As we get up and going, we'll be covering the ELA, the social studies, math, and so forth. But again, we're going to phase into that. And on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays and Fridays, they'll be sharing with you the schedules that will be occurring, either whole group or small group, within that school day. As far as parent expectations, our goal is that we are the educators, we are the teachers. It is our responsibility to educate your children, even in a remote environment, every single day. So please know that we don't look at this as homeschooling. That's why we're very clear that this is online learning that's being provided by a Rush-Henrietta teacher. So we're going to be putting assignments up there, explaining to students what to do, so they should be independent in doing it as we go along. However, the younger the grade, the more support, especially in the beginning. Our goal is, even with our younger children, as we get going, they should be more independent. But when possible, the partnership that we have with you to collaborate and cooperate, and I even spoke to the teachers this week and said that their communication with teachers is going to have to be frequent and very clear the first couple weeks, until everyone has become accustomed to this type of learning. So our goal is that we're going to hopefully be doing this so your children are engaging as independently as possible, but obviously your partnership in this will be necessary. And if students are struggling and a teacher sees that a student is having a difficult time, just like in a classroom setting, teachers will reach out to parents and let you know what's going on and ask for your support and give some tips. So yeah, so we're looking for that partnership right off the bat, but knowing that we take full responsibility in educating your child. Parent-teacher conferences, yes. How that's going to look, when that's going to occur, we haven't got to those details. We're trying to get to September 8th, so we're not thinking too far ahead to November just yet. But I think a good overall answer to this question is communication, curriculum, assessments, anything that teachers provide students in the normal school or in our hybrid model, we will have the same expectations for teachers in the Remote Learning Academy. We just may need to be a little creative at times of the how and the when we do it. The what we do will remain the same in both the hybrid and the remote models. How we deliver it and when we do it, just because it is so new, may vary a little bit. So that would be the reference, I would say, as we go throughout the year and you're anticipating things that come up throughout the school year. And parents and teachers will be connecting here in the near future. And I know teachers at different grade levels have different ideas on how to do that. I did have a question. Someone noted that we have 1,300 students and was curious, what does that look like? So 1,300 students, our entire district enrollment is 5,156. So that's about 25% of our student population decided to go with the full remote model. That is a little bit higher than we're finding the county average. So I like to think that overall our parents were pleased with what we did in the spring, and I like to take that as a token that our community trusts us as a district and has great faith in the Rush-Henrietta teachers in delivering this model to them. So we're very pleased that we have 25% of our community participating in this, and we promise you we're going to do our best to be able to deliver a very high quality program. So on the reverse of that, we have little shy of 4,000 students in our hybrid model, because our total enrollment is about 5,000 in the district. It did come up that, I mentioned just a couple minutes ago that we had added new teachers to the program. When I say that, we did this last Friday, so there hasn't been any staffing changes since Friday, so teachers were participating in all our training this week, and that is when our official training started. So no teacher missed out on any training regarding how to deliver an online program. As far as the curriculum in the hybrid and the remote programs are identical. Rush-Henrietta did not change the curriculum for this year. We're still following the same curriculum. The state has made it clear that we are expected this year to deliver the New York State standards, prepare students for the state assessments, which are still designated to be given this year, unlike last spring. Therefore, we've kept the curriculum the same. What we're working on is identifying what's most essential and how best to deliver it in a hybrid and in the remote program. So I am really confident that even though teachers were contacted last Friday, just a few of them to make some subtle changes, they still were part of this training and professional development we had this week. I also like to note that by no means could the teachers receive everything they needed this past week. The professional development is going to be ongoing. We did some of the most essential things this week, and we already have a plan for the next 6 weeks, because on Wednesdays, you know that our synchronous time is minimal with students on Wednesdays, and that was on purpose, because that's giving us ample time on Wednesdays to continue professional development and training. The thing that we do realize, and we ask you to remember, this is the first time that we've ever implemented a fully online experience K-12. It's the first time in New York State it's been done for public education. Therefore, we know there's going to be learning curves, and we can anticipate what we needed to get started, but we are going to be learning as we go along. So we wanted to make sure that those Wednesdays are kept available throughout the year to continue to provide professional development and support to our teachers as we see the needs arise. We also have time to work as a remote learning academy faculty, because we know we might need to make adjustments to some of our systems and structures, or we might need additional technology tools. So we did allow time for us to work with teachers to make adjustments under around the operational items as well. We have, so we're talking about curriculum and assessments. We will be giving the MAPS assessments to our students in the Remote Learning Academy. We are looking at the timeline for that. It will be within the same time frame, but there are some little nuances we're working on when you're doing it in a full remote environment opposed to doing it with the students when they're in person. The reason why we're still giving the maps is we do need to get a baseline on where students are to identify who needs additional supports, where there's any learning gaps. So in order to identify what needs students have, we do need to give these assessments this fall. But we won't be doing it the first 2 weeks. It'll start towards later September, and then we might take a couple extra weeks to deliver it. But we're still working on that timeline because we need to make some adjustments to it. There still will be physical therapy, musical therapy, and CT. If a student has it on an IEP or on a 504 plan, we will still be giving all the services. How we give them, you'll be working with your respective service providers, and they'll be giving you information for that as we go along. Let's see here. Do you see anything there you want to grab while I'm scanning?
Sure. Let me jump in. What should parents have at home to support students and teachers? We did put out a short supply list that had some minimal items on it. I think some of the most essential are whiteboards, headphones with microphones, especially if there's other people in close proximity. There can be a lot of background noise. So if you have headphones with a microphone, that can make it much easier to hear your child, especially if he or she is soft-spoken. That can really help. A dedicated workspace. If you can find a place that they're going to go to every day, they know when they sit down there, that's where they're going to do their work. They're going to be engaged with the teacher. And to establish that right off the bat, we're going to be talking about expectations and norms for getting ready for these Google Meets to come and make sure that you are ready to learn. Just like we work on in school with PBIS, we'll be doing the same thing with these Google Meets. So helping your student think about that, where can they both show that they're paying attention, that they're aware, as well as comfortable and can engage in sitting and looking at screens for extended amounts of time.
So we have a question about instrumental instruction. We are currently working with our music teachers to investigate how we could best deliver that and schedule that. And there'll be information coming out about that in the e-news this evening. Differentiation of instruction is just as important when we're working virtually as we are in person. And when we talk about the small group instruction and the posting of asynchronous assignments, and as well as the online resources that we purchase to use for remote learning academy students, our teachers will have the ability to differentiate the levels and the different supports that students might need to be successful. So not all kids will be getting the same assignment. We'll be working very hard to continue with that differentiation. Again, like I said, the learning expectations and teaching expectations that we have in person, we also have for our virtual learners. Is breakfast and lunch still available for pickup or RLA students? Yes, we're still going to make sure that we have the meals provided, and there'll be more information coming out from the superintendent on in the next couple of days while we're, again, something we're working on behind the scenes. The fostering relationships, I think we talked about that. This person might have just been hopping on a little bit later. We will be spending a lot of time the first couple weeks of school developing those online learning environments and helping our students get to know one another as well as their teacher.
One of our instructional coaches put together a 2-page handout with lots of great tips about Google Classroom and Google Meet that we included in the letter we mailed home to K-6 families. So you will be getting some directions and tutorials about how to log into Google Meet and Classroom and some of the features that are most essential to get you up and going. So that should be at your house any day now.
So a question is RLA planned for the whole year or only through the first semester? Right now you hear us referencing the first semester because we are going semester by semester. So it'll definitely be provided first semester. And assuming that there's no changes that come from New York State Education Department or our governor, we are anticipating we will be doing this for the full year unless we hear differently from the State Education Department. So yes, we are hoping that it will go all year because we put a lot of work into this and we're setting ourselves up for success, but it's a guarantee for first semester, and stay tuned if there's any changes for second semester. Will Wednesdays be non-learning days? No, Wednesdays are learning days.
Absolutely.
The state is requiring us to account for 180 days of student attendance this year. The first day of school for Remote Learning Academy students is September 8th, and Wednesdays are considered a day of attendance. What we are counting as attendance on a Wednesday is that students will be participating in their asynchronous assignments that teachers are providing to them and giving them feedback. Teachers will most likely be giving some feedback even on Wednesdays with some of the planning time and work time that they have. And in addition, on Wednesdays, there are some groups of students that will be working with their teachers because they might need reinforcement, some interventions, some reteaching, and the teachers will be communicating that with you if they are working with designated children on Wednesdays. So Wednesdays, we are going to be learning. Will we get a detailed schedule before Tuesday? It depends where the different grade levels and teams are as far as what that class schedule looks like. I was just working with 6th grade this afternoon because they're still going to be doing a teaming concept. So you will have at grade 6 2 teachers. So you might not have it for the first day, but if you go to the district website and you reference the Remote Learning Academy document, we just put a revised version of it on the website this evening. We do lay out what the student schedule is for the day as far as start and end times, when the lunch break is in the middle of the day. So reference that and you'll have a good idea what to expect for the time frame for learning on Tuesday. Attendance will be taken by the classroom teachers, and more information is coming out about that. If you choose to switch the RLA model for the spring, will students be assisted in the transition? How? As you know, we've accommodated people off the wait list the best we can. We're getting to the point that we're not going to be able to do that unless there's an extreme circumstance due to finalizing the staffing as of last Friday. And we will be keeping with the hybrid and the remote enrollment and staffing as is now for the first semester. If we are going to reevaluate and see how everybody's doing, and then that is the time when we will be making changes. We'll be notifying you late towards the first semester to start anticipating what kind of changes we'd be anticipating for the second semester. If we do make changes from one model to the next, obviously we'll be working with families and most importantly the students to help them through that transition. How that would look, that was the next part of this question. I can't tell you right at this moment. That is a detail we would have to work on when the time comes. I anticipate we would have to do some additional supports, some additional communications, and we will work through that with the students and the families that are being affected by the change.
There's a question about if you take a Chromebook for the first time, is there a form you need to fill out? There's not. There actually is never a form for that, but we have offered in the past, we have offered the ability to purchase an optional protection plan in case of breakage, whether it's accidental, well, they're all accidental, of course. But this year, the district has decided to waive the protection plan, and we will be covering the cost of repairs. We thought that during this uncertain times, there's just one stress we did not want to put on the families at the beginning of this year, so we will be covering that and fixing them in-house.
All right, there was a question here about internet providers. I know our superintendent works closely with the town, and obviously when they're private providers like that, we don't have a lot of connections and supports when it comes to the providers such as Spectrum and so forth. But I would hope that our service providers in the area are aware of what is occurring in our communities, and not only for our students, but I know many of our families are working remotely and relying on technology. If we would find that there was a problem, we do have a good relationship with our town supervisor as well as the different commercial industries in our area, and we would definitely try to work with them if we felt as though that this was causing a problem. But at this point in time, we did not have any preliminary conversations with them. So we will monitor that closely, and if that becomes a problem, I'm sure we can find avenues to communicate and collaborate. Do you want to take the location one of our teachers?
Sure,
Because I
absolutely.
know you've been spending a lot of time on space these days.
We've been
for
spending a lot of
teachers.
time on space. So we spent a lot of time thinking about how we wanted to address this and where we wanted our remote learning teachers, where it would be most beneficial for them. So what we've decided to do is congregate the majority of them within our senior high school. And the reason why is that we were able to find enough space to put them by grade level. So they'll be in a room with grade level with some nice headphones that will have noise canceling, and they'll be in isolated pods for safety reasons, but we wanted them close to each other and have lots of conversations. We believe in power of proximity. We think that what they need, since they won't have their students in front of them, they're going to need other people to bounce ideas off of and talk to, and so they'll have that with their colleagues. Right in the same room, for most of the classrooms, we have the grade level teachers as well as a special ed teacher that will be supporting them. So there'll be a lot of collaboration, a lot of work together in order to make sure that they're supporting each other during this new learning. Dina mentioned all the formal professional development we're doing, and that will be present and powerful, but there's never anything more powerful than what you can grab during lunch from a colleague and from a friend, and what they've done and works really well, and the teachers always really benefit from those experiences. So we've really worked to centralize them.
Yeah. And I know another part of that was what the room looks like. Here is the interesting part for elementary students and for elementary teachers, and I'm a previous elementary teacher myself. Our learning space is very important to us, and we rely on visuals. And what we've kept in mind is we're working with the teachers to identify what resources, what visuals they need. All teachers have access to having whiteboards in their space. And any visuals that they might need to use. So what the room looks like is going to depend on what resources and materials the teacher wants to bring into their workspace that they can demonstrate virtually to the students. So that will vary a little bit on the look of the workspace of the teacher when she's interacting with the kids, depending on the grade level. School pictures, that is an interesting one.
I saw that one, and it kind of shut me down for a half a second trying to think through how we would do that.
But I have heard a question about yearbooks. a couple weeks ago. And a couple weeks ago, I'm thinking yearbooks are the least of my worry at this point, but we are getting closer to working on some of these details. I'm in conversations with the elementary principals trying to identify, do we, post a page in the little school yearbooks, which goes along with the school pictures that we take, and have the remote learning classes, or do we do something as Remote Learning Academy? But we're in conversations trying to best figure out how to do a yearbook. But also for the school pictures, I guarantee you, we will give you an opportunity to have school pictures, figure out where we can do that, where you can come in and do it safely, following all our safety and health guidelines. But stay tuned for that one. That is something we'll get to a little bit later this fall. But we will think about how we best can provide that opportunity for the families that choose to do that.
Can you use your own device instead of a district Chromebook? Absolutely. I would strongly encourage that it be a PC or a Mac laptop or desktop. We had a lot of families try to use tablets in the spring, and it's not great success. So I'd strongly encourage that you use a Chromebook or a laptop. And if you're on a laptop, we also encourage you to use a Chrome browser. It just works. The G Suite obviously is built around the Chrome browser, and it works much more fluidly than a lot of the other browsers.
Curriculum question regarding the handwriting portion of our curriculum. I can tell you our primary teachers still feel very strongly that students still need to know how to have that correct pencil grip, how to do the correct letter formation, and so forth. We will be doing those activities with the primary students. The elementary teachers are thinking and working hard to figure out how best to do that. That's why I said we'll be sending some materials home when they do arrive, when we get them organized. So we still plan on working with the fine motor skills of handwriting with our younger students. Any of you that are familiar with our Foundations program that teaches the phonological perspective of learning how to read, the program is based on how they do the letter formations as well as knowing the letters and the sounds and so forth. So we will be incorporating that as part of our online learning. As far as the typing goes, our students do have access to different typing programs, and we'll be continuing to work on that as well. The one thing that we have found, I'll let you talk about our typing program in a minute, but the one thing I will say, we are shocked when we have our kindergartners and first graders come into our classrooms the last few years, and how well they can navigate the keyboard and the tools. So it's pretty apparent to us as we've worked with instructional technology over the last 5 to 7 years that every year we see the kids coming in with better and better skills in knowing that keyboard. Now, are they proficient typists? Well, we work on that. But knowing how to navigate a keyboard and knowing the different functions, we have found that most of the students do pretty well with that. However, you know your child best. And if that is an area that your child is going to need more support on, that's where you will work with the teachers. We still have access to our technology teaching assistants who could even provide some assistance in things that we could push out to help. So that is one of those aspects for our kindergarten, first and second grades especially. If your child is struggling in that area, just let your classroom teacher know, and we'll work with you a little bit on that. Do you want to say anything more about the typing and the keyboarding, since I know that's something we look at closely?
So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. It's something we spend a lot of time talking about it. We typically assess our 2nd through 6th grade students 3 times a year. We'll continue to do that with the Remote Learning Academy students. So they'll go on, they'll take a old-fashioned typing test that figures out words per minute and accuracy. We'll continue to do that. So the teachers will build, that's one of the asynchronous tasks that the teachers will assign to students to go in and practice. It's called Typing Agent. Now they'll give you the links. You want me to address the internet one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If a family needs internet, either you don't have sufficient internet or internet at all, will the district provide a MiFi card or similar? We will work. That's one of the things we've worked on over the summer to prepare for. If you're in the Remote Learning Academy and you think that you are going to have issues with internet, you can contact me. We can give you some solutions. We can work through some ideas. If you are in the hybrid model and you just wanted to watch us, you thought it was going to be entertaining television this evening, then feel free to just contact the principal of your school.
Question about speech services, I'll reiterate again. Any required services that a student is entitled to, let it be special education, academic intervention services, support services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, we will be providing. Stay tuned. The question that we're working on is when best to provide it and how best to provide it. Our Director of Special Education has been working very closely with us and with the teachers. We have allocated staff to work full-time in the Remote Learning Academy in all these service areas, so we will be providing those services. I ask you to stay patient. We'll be reaching out to you over the next couple of weeks and letting you know who the providers are, when they'll be connecting with your children and providing those services and how it will look.
The providers have spent a lot of time this week talking about how they can provide therapy, how they can do the testing. There's a question here about how do you assess to whether they still need the services. They're thinking through that they were working on it just today. So they will spend some time thinking about it, and they'll be ready to figure out how to develop that virtually. It's brand new for all of us, but we believe that there's absolutely ways to do it.
So there's a question about will the live lesson schedule be the same each week? The school structure of time, the morning chunk of time as well as the afternoon chunk of time for instruction will remain the same unless we find that there's some major concerns. We'll be reevaluating everything after the first 5 to 6 weeks, but we anticipate that instructional block of time will stay the same. How teachers are using that time, large group versus small group versus a little bit of downtime to do asynchronous, that will vary as we get more into the content as the weeks go over and as the teachers learn what's working and not working for their given class. So you're going to have to pay close attention to that, and the teachers will communicate that. We've talked about, how do you, before the end of one week, give a little heads up for the next week of how that's going to be planned out. Again, we keep emphasizing with our Remote Learning Academy teachers that it's all about communication, communication, communication. So they're already prepared to be in close communication with parents so that we can have a partnership in supporting your children and our students in being successful.
Someone said, this is overwhelming. Can you summarize the key points? And I can't agree with you more. There's many times I have found this overwhelming in the last couple months as we've planned through this. Absolutely. I think Dina mentioned at the beginning, and we want to reiterate it as well. If you go to rhnet.org/RLA, or look for the Remote Learning Academy plan online. That gives a lot of what we've talked about. It puts it in writing. You can look it over. We'll also be putting this recording up. It'll come back on. It's a recording that you can watch again. If you loved it so much and you want to just keep watching it, you're welcome to do so. And you can always reach out to me as well. If you have questions, once you get up and started, if your teachers can't answer a question, you can certainly reach out to me.
I was saying that all students will receive the services that they need. One question we have here is if a student needs to be assessed, because we do reevaluations and assessments to make sure that we're giving the appropriate services needed. Any type of reassessment or assessment that's needed for services will occur, and you will work with your service provider to have that happen. Oh boy, how will a local power internet outage be treated during a school day? Would that be considered a missed day? Well, first of all, if for some reason we have a windstorm, ice storm, or any type of power outage, we would not hold the children accountable if they did not have access to the internet. In that case, we would have what we call one of those snow days, I guess, and we would work around that. The good news is we're confident, especially at the elementary level, there still will be books to read. There'll be the manipulatives, the handwriting practice at home, that we're confident there will be other things that you could engage in if you did not have that internet access back to your teacher on a given day, so that you could still support your children at home being engaged in some type of learning, even if there was a power outage. But we'll think through that one in a little bit more detail and put some parameters around that in our teacher handbook.
And I think that goes along with the next question as well. Will we be observing snow days? That's something we have not yet thought through, but we certainly will, and have clear directions long before the snow starts flying.
And the good news is historically, snow days, we really didn't do too much, did we? But now that we've learned through COVID and through all our online learning, we can still do a lot even on a snow day if need would be. So we'll discuss all those things as we go along. Will students have an orientation between the first day of school. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to provide that this year. The orientation will be occurring basically on September 8th. I'm going to reiterate once again, we didn't even know we were going to be doing this until mid-August, when we found out at the same time the community did from the governor and how we were expected to do this. And even though, I'm going to say one more time, we're well prepared to do it, the time just got away from us in order to do a lot of things that we wish we could have done. And unfortunately, an orientation is one that we're not going to be able to do because we spent the last 3 days, and again tomorrow, with the teachers. So we're going to look at next week when students start on September 8th as our orientation week. And please know that we'll be very sensitive and open to making sure that children are comfortable and will feel secure and confident as we go along. So what we like to say is next week will be orientation week for all of us, including us as the administrators and as well as our teachers. All right, well, we did go 10 minutes over, and I did that purposely since we started 10 minutes late. And the good news is we did get through all the questions I saw posted. But the one thing I do notice is there are some themes that definitely were present in the questions tonight. So we will go back into our document. We continuously update the remote learning plan as we have more details that we work through and share. If any time that we do update that document, we can let you know that. I ask you to reference that often, as well as we'll be sending out e-news. So many of these items we'll be coming back around to over the next couple weeks and continuing to fine tune and communicate. So please, when you get the e-news, pay close attention to those, either from Brad or myself, and most importantly, your teachers when they're sending information to you. So if we did not get to a question, or if you come up with another question over the next couple days, please feel free to reach out to either one of us. And once the teachers have started to connect with you and with the students, we always ask that if you have a question or concern, always start with the classroom teacher, just like we do with our in-person model. They'll be the best person to start working with you to address any questions or concerns. If at any point that after working with the teacher you do need additional assistance, we will have an assistant principal assigned to the program who'll be working with you, and also Mr. Malone's going to stay closely involved with the program. So we definitely anticipate a lot of communication over the next couple weeks. Thank you very much for your time this evening. We are really looking forward to this, and we are confident that even though we don't have all the answers, we are very well prepared and excited to provide this opportunity for your children, our students, and we have a great year ahead for us this year. So looking forward to working with all of you this year. Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm ready when you are.
Is there anything you need to tell me before we get started, Katie? Starting on time.
Exactly what you did. You did a great job.
Good evening, and welcome to our Remote Learning Academy Secondary Parent Forum. My name is Dina Wilson. I am the Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, and this evening I also have Brad Malone, our Director of Information Communication Technology, who will be overseeing the Remote Learning Academy here with me this evening to answer questions and give you some more overviews to our Remote Learning Academy. First of all, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. This is our second forum this evening. We just finished up with our elementary parents, so bear with us a little. We've been at this for the last hour and a half, and we're just getting ourselves situated to start the second one here this evening. What we're going to ask that you do is, if you have questions, feel free to hop on our line and put them in. Mr. Malone and I will do our best to get to all the questions tonight. In the event that we cannot answer all the questions due to the volume, we can provide some follow-up answers after this evening. But at the elementary parent forum, we did get through all of them, and I feel as though that we're able to give some additional information as well as answer the questions. So we're hoping to do the same for our secondary parents this evening. Before we get started, I want to just give you a little bit of an overview of the Remote Learning Academy in case you haven't joined in any of our other forums over the last couple of weeks. First of all, on our district website, we do have a document that highlights the Remote Learning Academy plan, which gives you an overview of how we will be implementing instruction, as well as the secondary schedule that we will be following, and some additional information that will probably be very helpful. So if you've not looked at that document yet, please do so, because that will definitely help our parents have a better understanding. As everybody knows, in the middle of July, we received information from the governor and a guidance document from the State Education Department that public education in New York State needed to provide a remote option for our students and our community. So since the middle of July, we have definitely been working at a fast pace to create an instructional program and structure and format that has never been done before. In the spring, we did go into a remote mode, but that was definitely in a reactive response, and our teachers did an excellent job. Our parents were great partners in helping us, but we were mindful that our expectations, as well as the expectations from the state, specifically around assessments, gave us a lot of leeway in how we delivered our curriculum and provide instruction. With remote learning this year, it is much different. The state has made it very clear to us that in a remote learning environment, we are still to address all the state learning standards, the social emotional learning needs of students, as well as any academic support services or interventions they may need. Therefore, we've been working really hard the last couple weeks to identify what is the best way to provide this environment. We did survey all our staff as well as our parents last June. Thank you to all the parents who did complete the survey. And we looked at the survey responses. We looked for patterns and trends. So based on the feedback that we did receive in the spring from parents and teachers, we have taken all that into consideration in developing our Remote Learning Academy for this school year. So with the instructional technology expertise we have as a district that we've acquired over the last 5 years, ever since we became a one-to-one district and made instructional technology a priority in this district, as well as the feedback from staff and parents last spring, and the additional parameters that were given to us by the State Education Department in July, we are feeling very confident and proud to provide the Remote Learning Academy and the online learning environment that we will be giving our Rush-Henrietta students this first semester. With that being said, we have not figured out all the little nuances that still are occurring. We are still tweaking schedules. We're balancing classes to make sure that we have the correct class sizes. We're identifying best ways to provide courses for students and trying to give them ample opportunities, for example, instrumental lessons and so forth. So what we're asking is that in a partnership with us is that people are patient, flexible, and understanding. That even though we have a great foundation to get started on Remote Learning Academy and we have the answers to many questions, we do not have the answers to all the questions. And there's definitely different things that are going to come about over the next couple weeks that we will be addressing and communicating with our families. So I like to say that in the very beginning that we're off to a great start, but we do know there are a lot of things that we still need to work on over the next couple weeks. So I just ask everyone to be patient and flexible and trust that we will be monitoring and will be in communication, and together, the administration staff, the teachers, the parents, the kids, we will figure this out as we go along, and we will definitely keep communicating so everybody is well aware if we do make changes or if we do have solutions to any kind of problems that we're incurring over the next couple of weeks. I do want to let you know that Brad Malone is the director of the Remote Learning Academy. He is going to be here this evening with me answering some questions, and I would like to give Brad just a few moments to tell a little bit about himself. He's been asked to oversee this program due to the extensive amount of expertise and knowledge he has around instructional technology. He has been working a tremendous amount the last couple of weeks with us, as well as with our teachers the past week. So I'm going to give him an opportunity just to introduce himself so you get to know him a little bit, and he can give you a little bit of an overview as well.
Thank you, Dina, and thank you all for joining us. As Dina said, my name is Brad Malone. I've been with the district for 17 years, the last 4 of which I've been the director of technology. Before that, I was a library media specialist at the high school level. And this situation has really allowed an amazing opportunity to bring to life everything we've been working as a district over the last 10 years. This has allowed us to take all of the instruction that we've spent time creating around using technology to be a catalyst for learning. It allows us to take the assessments that we've built that bring to life how technology can help us learn. And it allows the curriculum that has been changed to better allow technology usage all to life, and to bring that to the forefront of the work we're doing and the professional development we've given our teachers, everything our students have learned around technology integration. And we've never did that, believe it or not, because we were expecting a pandemic, but we did it because we knew this was the right work for our students. We knew it was the right work for the future, and we knew that they needed these skills. And we've been working towards this, and sometimes I think of this as a very quick final exam we were not expecting that's come up around technology integration. I have said many, many times, I don't believe there's a district locally that's more prepared for this work than Rush-Henrietta. And I absolutely believe that you've made a solid choice for your children's education. Our teachers are ready and excited to work with them in this new model. Thanks, Tina.
Okay, with that being said, we are going to hop into some of the questions. We don't have that many coming in just yet, so we will address the ones that we do have. And Brad, I'm going to hand the first one over to you about substitute teachers.
Absolutely. There's questions about how will substitute teachers work in the RLA. First of all, if there's any long-term, which we count long-term to usually be 4+ days, that a teacher thinks that he or she is going to be out, we'll absolutely bring a substitute in. But before that, unlike a teacher sitting down and writing sub-plans that are then delivered by the sub, we have asked them their professional responsibilities to have prepared ahead of time or prepared that day asynchronous lessons. So they will communicate out to you, they'll communicate out to your students, let your children, let them know that they will not be available today, but they'll give them same rigorous instruction that would have happened synchronously. They will now be asked to do something asynchronously. So that'll allow the learning to keep happening in really much more controlled way than what happens when they have to do sub-plans for a sub they have not met before. So we think it'll really make the instruction even more powerful using this model. Long-term sub-plans, we'll bring somebody in, we'll make sure they have a lot of support, and we'll get them up to speed to teach remotely as well. But the short term will be done asynchronously.
The next question we have is specific around AP courses, but let me just back up a little bit and talk about secondary course offerings. If you joined any of our other information Q&As that we had with the cabinet and the superintendent made it very clear that we could only offer a limited amount of courses for our secondary students, the Remote Learning Academy. This is because of the staffing allocations that we could have. When we were taking registration for the Remote Learning Academy, we weren't sure what our class sizes and enrollment would look like. And obviously, when you're staffing for only give or take 550 students we're having at the secondary level 712, you just don't have the capacity to offer the wide continuum of courses that we do normally in an in-person environment. Therefore, we had to look at the most commonly requested courses. So what we started with is looking at the students who were enrolled in the Remote Learning Academy to try to find patterns and trends on what were the most commonly requested so that we could make classes. And then we also had to look at our staffing in our district and look at the courses that the hybrid students were choosing as well. Now remember, everyone made these course selections back in the spring prior to knowing about hybrid or remote options that we're going to be doing. So it was probably about a week's worth of work with principals, myself, Brad, our information systems department, counselors, really trying to wrap our heads around looking at student requests as well as what we could schedule and use our existing staffing to be able to provide. So we are very pleased because we feel as though that we underpromised, and I think we'll be over-delivering just a little bit in the course offerings. What we have been able to do is we do have a document that summarizes to date where the majority of the courses are landing that we're offering. So if you go to the rhnet.org/RLA, we do have that document posted there. And as you know, you will be able to access student schedules starting tomorrow morning. And what we have tried to do is give students the courses that were their first preference, second preference, maybe even third preference, or depending on if they take a lot of business courses, if they couldn't get the elective they originally picked in the business department, we could give them a different business elective. So the counselors have worked very hard to try to build the Remote Learning Academy student schedules based on what they know about the students and what their preferences and interests are, as well as what their original requests were. We were able to honor quite a few requests, but obviously not all. If you look at the document, and it'll show you what we are offering, over the next week, we can work with students if we need to make some adjustments. You're going to need to be patient. It's going to take time. I can't promise that we can accommodate every request, but we are willing to work through the course offerings. Building the secondary course offering schedule was very, very difficult in the short time that we were doing it. That is why we know that there's going to have to be some changes and tweaks over the next week because we couldn't run the testing that we do to make sure schedules and teacher schedules and balancing class sizes were as optimal as possible. So we will still be doing some of that testing over the next 2-3 days. We might need to do some minor changes as well as if we can accommodate any requests coming in from students and parents. So continuing to build student schedules will be a work in progress over the next week. But you will have the ability to first see it tomorrow, and your students can go into School Tool and see what their current schedulings for courses looks like. Around AP courses, there are AP courses that we are offering in the Remote Learning Academy. And we're able to offer AP Psych, AP World, I'm trying to see if there's a few other ones. And we're also able to offer a couple other AP courses because the Rush-Henrietta secondary teachers have been great in identifying how we can co-enroll some of our Remote Learning Academy students with the hybrid students. I want to give a shout out to the College Board and to AP because this past summer they have put their courses, curriculum, content accessible online for our teachers. So there's a lot of resources and supports that our teachers can access and use with students. That's why so many of the Rush-Henrietta teachers have worked with our counselors to identify which AP courses we could do some co-enrollment in order to provide the courses that we are. So when you reference the chart of the courses that we are offering for AP, some will be done totally online with other online students because there was enough of students enrolled to have an online Remote Learning Academy section. But there are a few other courses that the hybrid enrollment was low enough that we could co-enroll some of our Remote Learning Academy students. So this is very detailed. It's been very tricky work, so stay patient with us. But our goal is, even though we can't provide all our secondary courses, we're doing the best job possible to give as many opportunities for courses for the Remote Learning Academy students as well. So hopefully that answered the questions around courses at the secondary. I don't know.
There's a few other questions right around the decision that we had all 7th graders take Spanish 7, and whether that would have to continue and they'd have to continue taking Spanish into the future. They absolutely would not. Every year we have students that decide to switch their language and go to a different one. They'll just, it'd take a little while for them to get up to speed in the class, and the teachers can help them do that, but they're not bound to that. There's not regions involved until
It's a local regions at level 3.
Level 3. And so they will have the opportunity to switch. I think especially if you're going from Spanish to French to Romance languages, that should be that should not be too bad of a switch. There's also a question about what we would do mid-year, whether they could switch over to French. I have to say that we have not spent a lot of time thinking about, because a lot of what happens in the mid-year will depend on what the state tells us we can and can't do. We expect and would like this program to continue all year long. We think we've put together a strong program that will be beneficial to the students. But if the state says everyone has to go back and there's no more remote learning, then we will find ways to incorporate that. But that'll mean a lot of course changes and teacher changes for our students as we try to migrate them back into the program.
So at the secondary level, orchestra, chorus, and band is a course offering. So if students were interested in taking that course, they can continue to take that course, and we'll be looking at, how we can be doing some of that within the schedules. As far as instrumental lessons, we are working with our music teachers to identify how best to support instrumental lessons. And there was some information going on in our e-news tonight regarding music opportunities and instrumental opportunities for our students. Science, handle science in terms of experiments and labs. So our students will be interacting, doing lab experiences. We've been working with our director of science closely, and he has worked hard to find online stimulus-based activities that would replicate a lab experience. So our director of science, as well as our science teachers, are making sure that our Remote Learning Academy students will meet all the requirements for lab seat time in our Regent Science courses.
At the same time, the science teachers were very insistent to me that they still have science rooms so they could still film themselves setting things on fire and blowing things up. They were very insistent that I make sure that was available to them. So they will be able to do live demonstrations as well.
Yeah, we wanted to keep your home safe.
That's right, right. Yeah, we will not ask you to try that at home.
Yes. If your child is ill, we'll follow the same kind of procedures. When the teacher's taking attendance for that class or for the day, that will be noted as a sick day. And obviously, if your child is ill, we do not expect them to participate in their synchronous, and then hopefully they can get caught up with some of the asynchronous when they're feeling better. Very similar how we do it in the in-person environment. We were told we'd be contacted if our student couldn't get the classes they wanted so they could make a different choice. Will that happen? Our counselors will be sending emails out, so stay close to emails. They're going to try to use the email system first. And then if we need to do follow-up through phone conversations next week, I'm sure our counselors will be working around that too. So stay tuned. Our counselors are very well aware and are very willing to work with the students and the families to make that happen.
There's a question about what interactions with other students will my child have with remote learning. I'd like to take a step back and talk a little about all the ways we're helping our teachers prepare for this new endeavor. So since Monday, so this was day 3, you can tell it's day 3 because I'm getting a little tongue-tied. And again, tomorrow, our Remote Learning Academy teachers have all been doing intense professional development. Been delivered by Dina, myself. We also have 3 instructional technology coaches that have been in the position for 5+ years, all of them. And so they have deep knowledge on how to switch to virtual learning. And so we've done a lot of trainings around tools, around Google Meet, around Google Classroom. We've done a lot of instruction around the best instructional strategies and how to change that up. We've also done a lot of work on social emotional learning and community building. We know that's important. And to make sure that we really were experiencing this, we've done this all remotely. We weren't in the same room. They were all over the district and some at home. And so they got to experience what it's like to be a student receiving this. From everything, including that it's tiring. And it's tiring to look at a screen, and we need to build in different types of breaks and different activities. And they got to really feel what that was like. It also stretched us a lot to learn, we've talked in theory for a year now about virtual learning and doing it all remotely, but we've really pushed ourselves to make sure that we're delivering as quality as we can. We also had teachers coming from all over the district, so we did community building themselves. We had teachers from all 4 primaries, from both intermediates. We wanted them to get to know each other. So we gave them a lot of activities that they can turnkey and do in their classes. And we made clear the first week or 2 is about getting students back acclimated to learning, back associated with school, and comfortable with these new tools, with this new format, and with each other. And so we've really stressed that. We've really emphasized that, so you can see the tension go right out of the teacher's shoulders as we talk about that, because they know how much work needs to be done before the learning can actually begin.
Absolutely. We have a question about sports activities. And obviously, we're going to be following all the state guidelines regarding the sports, and that the students in the Remote Learning Academy will have the same opportunity to participate as our hybrid students. And as you know, I think it's, September 21st, if I remember the date, is we'll be starting some of our fall sports. So stay tuned on that. And obviously, whenever there's an opportunity for the remote students to participate along with our hybrid students in those extracurricular activities or a sports activity, as well as I see a question down here about clubs, we will make those opportunities available. The key with that is we'll be communicating that, and whenever in doubt, just ask a question and we'll make sure you get the information you need regarding sports and clubs and activities for our secondary students when they're available.
There's a question, if a student has their own their own device, do they need to use a district Chromebook? No, they certainly do not. I strongly encourage that you use a laptop or a desktop and not try to do it on a tablet or phones. We had many students try that in the spring, and it did not lend itself well to all the experiences. But if you have a laptop or a desktop they prefer to use, we encourage you to use a Chrome browser. It's built to work with G Suite. That's our platform we're using. It's built to use Google Meet and Google Classroom. You absolutely can do it. And then would you like to assign Chromebook back if they're not using it? Absolutely. We'll take them back and put it right back to use. I just ask that you return it to your student's home school's main office, and they'll get it back to the library, and we'll get it back to its right location and get it checked out to somebody else.
Oh, I see a question in here. If we didn't get an email confirming our RLA enrollment, what should we do? What you need to do is contact your home principal, your school principal, and if you have someone at the junior high school and at the senior high school, contact both the principals so that they know for their enrollment purposes, and then we have a process that the principals are following to ensure that we're accounting for anyone and everyone. So if for some reason you're joining us tonight and you have not received any confirmation, please contact the school principal first thing in the morning, and we'll make sure that we're able to address any of the enrollment issues that we have right now.
There's a question specifically about AP Sciences, and all these are in the co-enrolled model that Dia talked about, where they'll be learning with students that are in person, and we're only doing that with AP classes. And it's AP Biology, AP Chemistry, AP Physics, and AP Environmental are all the AP sciences that we're offering.
That's correct. How about the workbooks, textbooks, and other materials? Brad, you've been working with the teachers on this week, so I'll have you give them an update on that.
Yes. It turns out that teachers are very interested in making sure that we provide physical materials, as are we, to you all. And it also turns out to be a bit of an undertaking, because once you have 13 grade levels and multiple courses, combining all that. So what we will do is we will be putting together packages over the next 2 to 3 weeks. I told the teachers that they should prepare everything on the computer virtually for the first few weeks while we collected it all. And then we'll ask families to come to Technology Services, which is the department I oversee, to pick it up. That also goes for if you have any issues with your Chromebooks. There is a link that we're going to be putting tomorrow morning on the website. You may have also got the e-news with it yesterday. If you do not have a Chromebook or a working Chromebook at home, please fill out that form. Come to Technology Services about 24 hours after you fill out that form, and we will have one ready for you. We want to make sure that you have the devices you need and the materials you need once we get them all organized and ready for you.
So now one question is, what will tests look like for remote students? As we've been preparing not just for the Remote Learning Academy, but knowing that we need to be best prepared in our hybrid model as well, and in the event that the district goes totally remote, like what happened last spring, that we can continue with our assessments. Therefore, we have taken our secondary assessments and we have made sure that they've been uploaded to a platform called eDoctrina, so that our secondary students can take the required course assessments online in our district system. So we will be providing those assessments to our students. We are keeping in mind that that assessments need to be frequent so we can continue to monitor, but when I say they're being frequent, they need to be very short in nature and appropriate for an online environment. So teachers and program directors have worked hard this summer to look at all the required course assessments to ensure that they're appropriate for the online environment, as well as making sure they're uploaded into our system for our students to take online.
What do students do on Tuesday morning to sign into their classes? Great question. That's something that we've been asked a lot. Then it follows up, is it through Google Classroom? Yes. We are asking the secondary students to go to Google Classroom and look for that first class that they have. It should be very clearly named. We've worked a lot this summer on naming things very clearly. We found that was one of the things parents and students told us that we needed to clean up, so we've worked with the teachers to clean that up, to really have strong naming conventions. So they will just go to that classroom, and the teacher will give directions on how to get onto the Google Meet that we'll be using.
So we have a question. If students need extra help, will they have a dedicated time after school as they did before? We haven't designated a specific time just yet. That is something that we'll be working with our secondary teachers to identify what are the best ways to communicate and set aside time for extra help. The one thing to note, too, is that a lot of times extra help occurs within the structure of the period or the block schedule. So that even in a given period, especially within an online environment, there might be whole group instruction occurring for just a portion of that class period, and then the other portion could be working with small groups or providing individual assistance or feedback. So just like when you're in person, even though the teacher is providing a lesson, there is time within the block to be able to help kids individually or work with smaller groups. And we anticipate that to occur the same way in our online learning environment, that hopefully we can address a lot of the supports and time and extra time a teacher might spend with a child within that period, depending on how the teacher is delivering the synchronous as well as the asynchronous work. However, we do know that sometimes there will not be enough time within the period that we're teaching. So we'll work with the teachers to identify how best they feel so that they can accommodate that and support our students. So stay tuned and we'll give you some more information on that as we get up and going over the next couple weeks.
There's a question about how teachers, I understand how teachers will interact, but I'm curious how students will be able to form relationships and socially interact with each other. And that is a great question that we're working on as well. And that's going to be a lot through group work, through projects. They're going to have opportunities to work both within class and outside of class on different formats. We're also going to do a lot because we believe in having a culture around the Remote Learning Academy. I believe Dina called it a school within a school. We want that to feel like that. We want it to feel like a school. We'll have virtual spirit weeks. We'll be asking students to dress up in their green and gold and send in pictures. We'll be doing those kind of activities to feel connected to the school, and lots of work within the classes for them to work with each other and get to know each other more.
There was a question regarding our 7th grade math acceleration program. Unfortunately, we were not able to offer the math acceleration program in our Remote Learning Academy due to the enrollment numbers and the staffing issues, as I explained earlier this evening. So there is a question, could they still go and do algebra in 8th grade? That is something I have talked to our math director about, because there is, with math, there is a sequence of learning, and when you do take that accelerated 7th grade math, you're really taking 7th grade and 8th grade math all at once. However, it's something we could look at during the school year and see if there is a way that we could think about maybe in the spring doing some activities, that if there is some students that would benefit from the acceleration and have the skills and ability to do so, that we could provide some extra assistance and be able to provide them with that opportunity. I'm not promising it, but it is something we can investigate as the school year goes on. We have
There's
another
a couple
one?
questions. This came up in the last one too, about will remote students be included in school pictures, or are we submitting their best selfies? And I have to say, this is something we're still working on, although I do like the idea of their best selfies. We do expect that we'll find some opportunity for them to get professional school pictures. We'll do it in a safe environment. We will work with the company, but I'll be honest, it will not be on the forefront of the work we start up in the first few weeks.
Yeah.
But wait for my e-news. We'll definitely send more information about that in the fall.
And usually after we're asked about school pictures, we're asked about yearbooks.
Yes.
We don't have an exact answer for yearbooks just yet, but we do know that we'll make sure that our students are included in a yearbook, and how best to do that with the homeschools, or maybe even think, how do we do it to capture the essence of the Remote Learning Academy within the school yearbooks as well. So we did not forget about that. We know that is of an interest of our remote learning students, not only to have their school pictures, but to be incorporated in a yearbook. So we will keep that on a high priority list to work on over the next couple of weeks to come up with a plan for yearbooks.
Dina, I think you should take this next one. There's a couple different questions about the final exams. Are they going to be online or in school, and are they required for the RLA students?
So when you signed up for virtual learning, that means that the curriculum, the instruction, and the assessments will all be delivered online. We do know that at this point in time, the Regents exams are still being required, and currently, unless something happens over the next couple months, Regents exams are not offered online, unlike our 3 through 8 state assessments that students can take online, and which we have done historically in the district for ELA. So we'll have to keep you in the loop for any state exams at the secondary level, specifically around the Regents. You do know that the AP exams were offered online this past year, and the best indication that we have at this time that the APs will continue to offer an online format as well. So we'll give you more information about state exams as they become available to us. So it might be a situation where remote kids might need to come to school in June to take the state exams in person. But when that time does come, and I got to tell you, June seems like it's already June, but it is still far away. We will work through that. But in the meantime, all our other school assessments, students will be taken online in the Remote Learning Academy.
There's a question, will Brad continue to be the point person for any RLA news, and will he be sending out weekly e-news? We are in the process of hiring a full-time assistant principal, and gosh, all darn, I am excited for us to get an AP in here. There's a lot of work to be done, and there'll be work between either that person and myself. We will be doing regularly communications. A lot of e-news is often about events going on in schools, so I'm not sure if it'll be weekly, but if it needs to be, it absolutely will be. But you'll see me often. You'll hear from either myself or the AP on a regular basis, for sure.
There's a question about the physical health form. You still will be receiving some communications from your home schools and your home school principals for something that's related around the clerical back end of keeping our student records. So when we're trying to update the information in School Tool to make sure we have correct information and contacts, that will be coming from the home schools, and as well as our physical health forms that will still be carried out through the home schools. So stay tuned and we'll make sure you get more information about that. How will PE work for the Remote Learning Academy? So our physical education is still a requirement. It's a high school graduation requirement for grades 9 through 12. And our Remote Learning Academy students, as well as our hybrid students, because of the safety concerns and the guidance around PE, will all be doing their PE work in an online environment. And our physical education teachers have worked together and are currently still working to provide what we call the asynchronous activities, and they will be posting different videos and activities, as well as asking students to keep a journal so that they are participating in physical activity and keeping track of their physical activity, reflecting on it, as well as some activities that they'll be engaging in that are posted by the physical education teachers regarding health and being physically fit and so forth. So stay tuned. Your student will be assigned a PE teacher that they will be working with online to complete all the asynchronous requirements. A little bit different than at the elementary level, where we're leaving the PE asynchronous activities more optional at this point in time. At the secondary level, it is a required course, and the students will need to complete the online physical education asynchronous activities in order to receive credit.
Will there be another info session after school begins to answer questions that come up then? First of all, I'm glad you're enjoying this so much that you want some more. I understand that completely. I would say if we do our jobs well, that the AP and myself are communicating, the teachers are reaching out to both the students and yourselves, I hope we won't need one. I hope that we'll be very clear in everything that's happening. But you can always come to me directly for questions once the AP is in place. But as always, you want to start with the teachers. They're the ones on the ground floor. They're the ones that know the most. Start with them, and if you don't get the answers you're seeking, absolutely come to the assistant principal or myself, and we will make sure to help you get the support and assistance that you need. If we end up needing one of these, or people just miss Dina and I, we absolutely can consider it. But again, I think we plan to communicate differently in a way that you guys don't have to sit around on a Wednesday night watching us.
I think they have more important things to do than watch us.
Absolutely. Then there's a question about paper, workbooks, textbooks students need. Will it be mailed home, or will students be required to pick them up at schools? I would have to say that we are going to have them pick up at technology services, especially when we start talking about textbooks. I mean, obviously that would be a large cost to the district to mail those all home. And I've also heard the post office is having some troubles right now. And so we will probably just ask you to stop by and pick them up. We have a back entrance at the back of the senior high school. You just ring the bell. It takes, if any of you picked up Chromebooks in the spring, it takes literally a minute to pick up your materials. We expect to have that in 2 to 3 weeks, but as the list keeps growing, it's probably going to be closer to 3 as we manage all 13 grade levels, getting the materials together.
So we're doing a great job keeping up the questions, but I just want to make sure we hang on for a couple minutes longer at least to make sure people have additional questions or if someone's joining us lately. So I thought it might be nice to share with our Remote Learning Academy families to know that you're not alone in this adventure. That as of today, we have about 1,300 students, probably going to be over that number by the time we open school, who have enrolled in the Remote Learning Academy. I have to tell you that we're very excited about this because we always believe that students and families need choice. You were given a choice. You chose this one. We appreciate that and are very proud that you're confident that we can deliver this program. I think it's important to know, too, that when we're talking 1,300 students and we're a district of just a little over 5,000 students, that's 25% of our population who has chosen to do the Remote Learning Academy. So hopefully that will also send a message to you that we are committed to doing this, that one, you're not alone, and the Remote Learning Academy is something that I personally, as the Assistant Superintendent, is going to stay involved with, and we're going to give a lot of support to. We quite often say that, you know, in education, teaching and learning really needs to resemble the world that our students live in and what we're preparing them for. So even though this is something that we are doing because we were required to do, we also believe that we can provide a high-quality program to our students in an online environment. And as secondary families, you've been along with us in this journey in Rush-Henrietta regarding instructional technology. You know that we've been a one-to-one district for some time. You also are probably very well aware that we have received some acknowledgments from different organizations. We've have presented nationally that even though there's still a lot of questions that we need to answer and many things that we're still working on, as far as the instructional delivery and our curriculum, being able to accommodate doing this online, we are very excited and proud because we do believe that our students in a remote learning environment is going to have an experience and they're going to have the education that they need that's going to prepare them for their college and their careers. So we just want to say thank you for having the confidence in us and your willingness to work with us. I also want to give a shout out to our secondary Rush-Henrietta teachers who have worked very hard in thinking how best to do this. We also, in addition to having secondary teachers assigned full-time to the Remote Learning Academy, in order to give a very comprehensive remote course offering, there are quite a few teachers that are working part-time in the Remote Learning Academy that are just picking up one section or two sections in order to offer an AP or to provide another elective. So we do have a handful of secondary teachers that are teaching in the hybrid model, but are also willing to run a course or two or do some little dual enrollment activities and co-enroll with our students, or a few independent studies I know are being talked about, in order to provide students with programs that are of interest, of motivation, and that will continue to prepare them for their college and career experience. So I would be remiss if I wouldn't take a moment to acknowledge and thank the teachers who are making this possible and are working really hard to make this a great experience for our students.
One thing that hopefully you've heard the theme tonight has been around communication. And we plan to be communicating with you frequently. And in order to make that happen, we need to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information from you. So you received blue cards from your home schools that were mailed to you. If you could just update those for us and just fold them and return them, it helps tremendously when we have accurate phone numbers and email addresses to reach you guys. Also, please encourage your students to be checking their school emails. That's something that has definitely been hit or miss over the years. And that, again, if they see the teachers every other day, that's not as big of an issue. But encourage them to check the emails, put the email on their phone so it pops up, so they're in constant contact and they get the notifications from myself, from the assistant principal, and most importantly, from the teachers.
Okay, tutors. We have not assigned tutors to the Remote Learning Academy, just like we really don't assign tutors in our in-person instruction, but we do have teachers that are available to provide academic intervention services and supports. And again, I know that the Rush-Henrietta teachers have already thought about within their class periods how to differentiate, provide support to students in small groups when other students are working asynchronous. So we'll continue to monitor how students are doing, and if the need, if you find that your child is struggling in a course, please communicate with the teacher. And I know our teachers are willing to work and help to make sure our students are being successful. And then we will monitor as we go along. If we do need additional academic intervention services, we can look at how we can allocate staff between the hybrid program and the remote program to make that available if needed. Now that I threw out that little statistic as we were waiting, they're going to ask me lots of questions now about enrollment and about how many students. So right now, Brad just shared with me through our questions here that we do have 555 secondary students assigned. The majority of the students are elementary, but at 712 we do have 555 students. So as you can imagine, that was a lot of students and schedules to put together in the last 2 weeks. Do you reasonably expect to be able to teach half year of the state's learning standards? I'm not really following that question. There was another question about covering the curriculum. So some of our courses have been semestered, if you're referencing electives here, because we thought it was more manageable for kids to do a elective course every day for one semester, opposed to taking 2 electives and alternating them every other day over a school year. Again, that was some feedback that we got from the parents and the teachers, that some of our secondary students, especially at the junior high school level, were overwhelmed with the amount of teachers and Google Classrooms they had to manage. So if it used to be a full year, 0.5, accredited course, and then now it's a half year, the curriculum isn't changing or the expectations. We're just trying to truncate in a semester to make it more manageable. Also, I want everyone to realize that we've been very, very mindful of what the expectations are, like around Regents exams or state exams, and knowing what the most essential standards are, and really looking at our curriculum, and program directors will be working with teachers to identify what are the most essential standards, content, skills that we need to teach and make sure kids are mastering. So we're really honing in on our curriculum to make sure that we can cover the most essential skills to prepare our students for any exams that they have, or making sure they have the essential skills in a course that might be leading them to another course. So I'm hoping I answered that one correctly around meeting the state standards for courses that we might be teaching in a half year.
So there's a question about if schools close and the hybrid students go online. Boy, let's not hope that doesn't happen, but will they be combined with RLA students, or will they stay separate? Because of the way we schedule and the way the courses are set up and the way the teachers are assigned and staffed, they would stay separate.
So the good news is, if we're required to go full remote like we did in the spring, you guys are ready to go.
Yeah, 25% of our students are all set. They'll have their schedules. They'll just be able to keep trucking.
Yeah, so you will be separate, and you're good to go, at least for the first semester. We're anticipating for the full semester. How do we find out who the counselors are for the new 7th graders? I will follow up with our junior high school principals and make sure that information does get shared out with you, because, as I said earlier, and I don't know if I said this, and please forgive us because we did one earlier, so then I think, did I say this before or didn't I? For our students in our secondary program, as well as the elementary, we did not assign social workers or counselors to the Remote Learning Academy, and we did that on purpose. We believe that our students are best suited to work with the social workers or counselors from their home schools, because they either have already had established a relationship with that counselor or social worker, Or if they're going into a new school, that will be the social worker or counselor they'll be working with in the future. So for any remote learning student that needs to work with a social worker or with a counselor, let it be around social, emotional needs, or as well as for our counselors with the course selections, you will continue to work with your homeschool counselors. So in regards to the 7th grade students, stay tuned, and I'll make sure that Roth and Berger send that information out to our students. Will there be monthly updates? I think Brad talked about that. We're going to be communicating frequently
At the
with
minimum,
everyone,
monthly.
yes. Brad, how are we doing with our questions?
Looks like we've exhausted you all. I get,
So at this point, as much as we know you probably have enjoyed spending your Wednesday night with us, and we don't have any questions really coming in, I would think that we'd be best just maybe bringing some closure. And if questions do come up, feel free to email us, and we'll do our best to get back to you. Is there anything that you feel so we need to have in our closing here, Brad?
no, I'm going to turn it right back over to you. Nope.
Okay.
You always bring us home well.
Okay, well, in closing, one, I just want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
I also want to thank you for giving us the privilege to educate your children and to trust us, especially on a new adventure like this, and know that we are dedicated and we're working hard to make sure we're providing a high-quality program in our remote learning academy. I will say once again, we know that we're going to have some challenges along the way, but know that we're going to work together with you, with the students, to ensure that we're going to look at our challenges as opportunities to overcome and to learn and grow from. So thank you for all the support you've already given us, and we all are looking forward to working with our Remote Learning Academy families this upcoming school year. So thanks for spending your night with us, and enjoy the evening, and we're off to a good school year.
Thanks so much.